My name is Thomas Eckard. I am 71 years old, and I am standing in my own house right now. The house I built with my own hands before I left, and there is not a single photograph of me on any wall.
Not one. I have been back for 6 days. I have walked through every room. I have opened every drawer. I have sat in every chair. And the only proof that I ever existed in this house is a small crack in the kitchen wall that I made the night before I left, when I punched it in anger. That crack never got fixed. Everything else did. I left in 1999. My daughter Sarah was 7 years old. My son James was 4. My wife Margaret was 34, still young, still beautiful, still believing in me more than I believed in myself. I told them I was going to Germany for work. Good money. Better future. I said it would be 2 years. Maybe 3. Then I would come back, and we would live the life I always promised them. The first year, I called every Sunday. I sent money every month. I told myself this was love, providing, sacrificing, building something bigger than myself. I could hear Sarah doing her homework in the background. I could hear James laughing at something on television. I told myself I was doing this for them. I believed it. That was the first lie I told myself. The second year, the calls became every other Sunday. Work was demanding. Shifts were long. I was tired in a way that sleep could not fix. But the money was good. Better than good. I started saving. I started planning. I told Margaret, just 1 more year. She said okay. She always said okay. I did not understand then what that okay was costing her. That be why the 5th year, I had missed Sarah's first school play. I had missed James learning to ride a bicycle. I had missed 2 of Margaret's birthdays. I told myself these were small things. Life is made of bigger moments, I said. I was building toward those bigger moments. But here's what nobody tells you about missing small things. They are not small. They are everything. And you only understand that when they are gone forever. Year 7, Margaret stopped asking when I was coming home. She stopped asking because she already knew the answer, even if I did not. She had started working herself by then. A small job at a school. She was managing the house, raising 2 children, paying bills, attending school meetings, fixing broken things. All of it alone. She had stopped waiting. Not because she stopped loving me, but because waiting was a luxury she could no longer afford. That I came back once. Year 9. For 3 weeks in the summer. Sarah was 16 by then. She hugged me at the airport, but her eyes were somewhere else. James shook my hand like I was a distant relative he had heard about but never really known. That handshake from my own 11-year-old son broke something inside me that I still have not been able to name. Margaret made my favorite dinner that night. We sat at the table together and talked politely like strangers sharing a waiting room that I went back to Germany after those 3 weeks. I told myself the distance would shrink soon. I told myself they needed more time to adjust to me being around. I told myself a lot of things in those years. I was very good at telling myself things. What I was not good at was listening to what my family was trying to tell me. not with words, but with silences, with short replies, with the way they stopped asking me questions about my life because they had stopped expecting me to be part of theirs. Sarah got married at 26. I found out through a photograph Margaret sent me on my phone. No call before. No invitation discussed. Just a photograph of my daughter in a white dress standing next to a man I had never met, smiling the most beautiful smile I had ever seen on her face. I stared at that photograph for a long time. I kept waiting to feel angry, but anger never came. Only a quiet, heavy shame that settled into my chest and never fully left. James stopped calling altogether around year 14. I tried reaching him a few times. Short replies. Busy. Talk later. Later never came. I asked Margaret once why James was so distant. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Thomas, he does not know you well enough to miss you." That sentence has lived inside me like a splinter ever since. Not well enough to miss you. I had been so focused on being a provider that I had forgotten to be a person to my own children. Margaret and I officially separated in year 17. There was no big fight. No dramatic phone call. She simply said one evening, "Thomas, I think we have both known this for a long time." And she was right. We had been living a kind of quiet pretend for years, married on paper, strangers in practice. She was not cruel about it. She was never cruel. That was always the most painful thing about Margaret. She was kind even when she had every right not to be. I kept working in Germany for 5 more years after that. What was I going back to now? I told myself I was saving for retirement. I told myself I still had time to rebuild something with my children. I told myself that when I finally returned, I would make everything right. Old men are very skilled at telling themselves they still have time. It is perhaps the most dangerous habit a person can have. I came back 6 days ago. Sarah lives in another city now with her husband and 2 children, my grandchildren, whose names I know but whose faces I have only seen in photographs. James lives 30 minutes from this house. He knew I was coming back. He has not visited, has not called. I sit in this house every evening and I listen to the silence, and I try to understand how a man can spend 22 years working for a life and return to find that the life left without him. There is a photograph on the mantelpiece in the living room. It is of Margaret, Sarah, and James at some Christmas. James looks about 12, Sarah maybe 15. They are laughing at something outside the frame. Something I was not there to see. They look happy. Genuinely, completely happy. And I am nowhere in that photograph. Not because they removed me, but because I was never there to be included. That I have been thinking about what I would say to a younger man who is sitting right now in a foreign country, sending money home, telling himself this is love. I would tell him, money is not presence. A bank transfer cannot tuck a child into bed. A wire payment cannot sit beside your wife when she is frightened at 3 in the morning. You can give your family everything they need to survive and still leave them completely alone. And loneliness inside a family is the quietest, most devastating kind there is that I am 71 years old. I am sitting on a porch of a house that is technically mine. The garden is neat. The walls are painted. The roof does not leak. Everything I worked for is here, well maintained and completely empty of me. Sarah called yesterday, a short call, polite, careful. James has not called. I do not blame either of them. You cannot ask people to miss someone they were never given the chance to know. I built a good life. I just built it in the wrong place, for the wrong reasons, at the cost of the only thing that was ever truly mine. And sometimes late at night, I find myself wondering, if I had come home in year 2 like I promised, would any of this have been different? Or was the distance always inside me, and the ocean just gave it somewhere to live? I don't know the answer to that. Maybe you do. Tell me in the comments.